Let's dive right in. Today, we're unpacking nature's hidden machinery. We're talking about the absolute marvel of biological engineering that surrounds us every single day. In this explainer, we're going to explore the botanical blueprint of flower structure and exactly how plants reproduce. Think about it. When you look at a beautiful flower blooming in a garden, what do you actually see? Vibrant colors, right? Maybe you notice a nice scent. But we need to look past that aesthetic beauty. A flower isn't just sitting there to look pretty. It's literally a highly complex, incredibly efficient reproductive engine. So to understand how this engine works, here's our quick agenda for today. We'll cover the anatomy of a flower, methods of plant reproduction, the mechanics of pollination, asexual plant reproduction, and then wrap up with a quick botanical revision. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the anatomy of a flower. Just to ground us, a flower is defined as the reproductive structure of a flowering plant that helps in sexual reproduction and seed formation. That means every single petal, every stalk, it all serves this one ultimate goal, producing seeds to make sure plant life continues. Now, a typical flower is made up with some highly specialized parts. First, you've got your protectors and attractors. The sepal protects the bud before it even opens, and those brightly colored petals, they act like giant neon signs to attract pollinators. But the real magic, the actual machinery, is in the reproductive organs. On the male side, we've got the stamen. This includes the anther, which is the part actually producing the pollen grains, and the filament, which basically just supports the anther. Then, on the female side, you have the carpel, sometimes called the pistil. This whole structure features a stigma at the very top, designed to catch and receive pollen, a style acting as a connecting tube, and an ovary right at the base. Inside that ovary are ovules, and those ovules are absolutely crucial because they are what will eventually develop into seeds after fertilization. Which brings us nicely to Section 2, methods of plant reproduction. Before we get into the how of it all, let's just quickly define reproduction itself. Simply put, it's the biological process by which living organisms produce new individuals of their own kind. It is literally the fundamental drive for survival across all life on Earth. And plants achieve this through two completely different paths. On one hand, you have sexual reproduction, which involves the fusion of male and female reproductive cells. On the other hand, there's asexual reproduction, where a new plant develops from just a single parent, meaning no cell fusion at all. So two totally distinct paths leading to the exact same destination of creating new life. Let's look closer at that first path in Section 3, the mechanics of pollination. Okay, so sexual reproduction happens in a very specific three-step sequential journey. Step 1, pollen transfers from the anther to the stigma. Step 2, once it gets there, the male reproductive cell carried by that pollen fuses with the female reproductive cell hiding inside the ovule. And step 3, because of that cellular fusion, boom, a brand new seed is formed. But let's pause and look at that very first step. Before any fusion or fertilization can even think about happening, that pollen has to make a physical journey. We call this pollination. It's defined as the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of a flower. This is the absolutely necessary first step. Without pollination, the whole biological engine just stalls out. Now, there are a couple of distinct ways this transfer actually goes down. Self-pollination is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's the transfer of pollen to the stigma of the same flower, or maybe another flower on the exact same plant. It's basically a closed internal loop. Cross-pollination, though, is the transfer of pollen between two completely different plants of the same species. And honestly, this is where it gets fun, because cross-pollination requires a little help. Nature uses agents like the wind, insects, or birds acting as a literal delivery service to move that pollen from plant A over to plant B. Moving right along to Section 4, asexual plant reproduction. So you might be wondering, what happens when plants don't use flowers? Well, in asexual reproduction, a new plant develops from a single parent without the fusion of reproductive cells. That means no pollen, no stigma, no fertilization whatsoever. It is a true solo act. Out in the real world, this actually happens in a few fantastic everyday ways that you've probably seen. First up is layering. This is when a branch bends down, gets covered with soil, and roots just start developing on the stem while it's still attached to the parent plant. Pretty wild, right? Then you've got bulbs. Think of an onion or a clove of garlic. These are actually modified underground storage structures with fleshy layers that can just sprout a completely new plant. And finally, tubers, like your standard potato. A tuber is just a swollen underground plant structure meant to store food. You know those little eyes you see on a potato you left in the cupboard too long? Those are actually buds that can develop into brand new shoots. So yeah, your kitchen pantry is literally full of asexual reproductive structures. All right, let's wrap this up with Section 5, a quick botanical revision. So if you only take one thing away from this explainer, let it be this core botanical framework. Flowers are the reproductive structures of plants. Reproduction itself is the biological drive to produce new individuals. That can happen through sexual reproduction, which relies completely on the mechanics of pollination, whether that's self-pollination or cross-pollination. Or it can happen through asexual reproduction, using ingenious methods like layering, bulbs, and tubers to create new life from just one parent. Which brings us to a final thought to leave you with. The next time you're outside and you see a beautiful flower, what hidden botanical machinery are you going to spot? Are you going to notice the bright petals working hard to attract a bee for cross-pollination? Might you actually peek inside to spot the stamen and the pistil? I really hope this explainer has given you a whole new lens to view nature through. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and you'll quickly find that the world around us is endlessly fascinating. Thanks for tuning in.